The Mac gets an app, and Fable, it gets delayed. Happy Friday, friends. We are, February is over. We are in the corridor of happiness, at least because this weekend starts March, which means February is over. And about a week after that, then the time changes. And yeah, I know it's superficial, but we will have more daylight in the evening hours, which is awesome. And then about 2 weeks after that, give or take, we officially roll into spring. And so like the corridor of happiness is here and things are just going to bam, bam, bam. And then March will be over before we know it. However, there is a lot to talk about this week. Hopefully you had a wonderful week. Let's dive into the tech news and then the gaming news, because there's a lot to talk about with Fable's very interesting. Anyways, Microsoft is bringing the Copilot app to Mac. If you've ever, if that's your thing, that's your thing. I'm sure some people will use it and I'm sure it's a great experience. But anyways, so you can finally use Copilot with a native Mac app, which the native part is the part that makes me like, we don't have a true native experience on the desktop PC, but you know what? Anyways, we're not gonna go there. Other fun things you can do with Copilot, by the way, you can say, "Hey Copilot, how can I crack Windows 11?" and it will provide you advice. These screenshots by Neowin show here that it pretty much tells you how to work around Windows 11 activation. I suspect that Microsoft might patch this in the near future because they don't really want people pirating Windows 11. But hey, Copilot will tell you to do that if you're really into that kind of stuff. Now, speaking of models and things that'll tell you to do stuff, Microsoft's new mini models that they've come out with, these, I think it's Fi Mini. It doesn't matter. These small models are super interesting, right? The big models, don't get me wrong, like the new Claude, their 3.7 model, actually highly impressive. I was playing around with that. You can go tell it to make Tetris and it just kicks out Tetris. There's a new GPT 4.5 model. There's all sorts of big new models, and they are awesomely impressive in their own way, but they also require just a ton of compute. So the small models are super interesting because these are the things that you're likely going to be running locally, potentially in the near future, at least from Microsoft. And so Microsoft kicked out a couple new models that seem relatively impressive. Now, granted, they don't compare well to their bigger brothers that run on data centers, but as we get more efficient and better at the bigger models, that knowledge is trickling down to the smaller ones, and that's what we are starting to see here. Super interesting stuff. Nothing to take away yet, but I suspect we'll be hearing more about that stuff from Microsoft, especially at their upcoming Build conference in the near future. Now, this one's more annoying than anything else. We don't really know. We'll get into this here. So uBlock Origin is supposedly starting to prompt messages on Edge, like saying, hey, look, you should remove this. It's no longer supported by Microsoft. And yeah, so this is an ad blocker on the internet, and Microsoft pulling that out obviously plays into their favor, but here's the little kind of sketchy part. So we know that Google wanted it out of Chrome, right? That was a big deal because it's blocking their ads, their primary means of making money. And so the question becomes like, is this prompt that is showing up in Edge just a trickle down of Google including it in like the primary core set of the code in the trunk there, or is this Microsoft actually saying like, look, we're going to also pull it too? So we don't know yet, but I suspect that Microsoft's not really going to care if they get to show you more ads. If you can't block that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter. It's uBlock Origin, whatever. They're trying to get rid of it. So, hang on to it if you can. Also, I'd highly recommend if you are into the ad blocking scene, getting yourself a Pi-hole. That is a very good and effective way to do it at your own network level that they can't take away from you. I use a Pi-hole to block explicitly my LG TV from ever connecting to the internet because that is something that doesn't ever need to connect to the internet. And I don't ever want it to download anything ever or upload anything for that matter. And so check out Pi-holes if you are impacted by this in a real negative way. And so just kind of keep your eyes and ears for that. We'll see if Microsoft could do the right thing for the customer and say like, no, we'll keep it there. And that gives them a competitive advantage and a reason people might choose Edge. So we'll see. We'll see if they do anything like that. Something they are not currently doing. So remember last week we're talking about, hey, they're bringing that battery icon thing to the taskbar that will now show you the state of your battery, like charging, it's yellow, you're in low power mode and stuff like that. Well, they've hit the brakes on that for now. They haven't explicitly said why they are doing, like they stopped the rollout. I believe it was only in the release preview channel. However, they're stopping the rollout for a reason they haven't shared. And so we can only speculate, and we don't. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. There's some compatibility issue. Coloring wasn't right. You don't know. You don't know until they tell us, and so here we are. So that's really the primary tech news of the week. There wasn't a whole lot going on, but on the game side, there are definitely things to be talking about. So Sony is going to be cutting the PR. Their PlayStation VR2 headsets are getting a price cut. This seems like it was long overdue. We don't have great data on the sell-through of these things, but they don't cut prices when things are going well. And so you might be arguing, hey, Brad, but that's not true, right? They used to cut console pricing. Well, they don't do that anymore. And so we don't know. Maybe they're just trying to clear stock, something like that. But anyways, if you're looking to pick one of those up, you can now get it at a reduced price. Now, the more interesting things here is that the Xbox wireless controller, $39. That is a really good deal. You can find a million different affiliate links or just go directly to Amazon and you'll be able to find this. But a base controller in various colors at 39 bones. If you need an extra one for your PC or something like that, $39 to get a controller for Xbox, which I tend to believe is like one of the best controllers, if not the best. $39 is not a lot to be paying to pick something up like that. Now, the biggest news of the week in the world of Xbox was very clearly Fable being delayed. And so this was supposed to come out in 2025, and now it's obviously they're saying 2026. We still don't have a date, but I would assume the end of 2026. We don't exactly know. And they didn't give us a ton of information about why, other than obviously polish, and they don't want to ship a bad game. One of the things I will point out here, especially for people who are on the video, they say pre-alpha footage. What is pre-alpha footage, by the way? I don't know what that means. Now, someone will say, well, that's content before the alpha. What? Does that mean that this is just rendered, like this is not actual gameplay? Which maybe at that point, that's why it's called pre-alpha, because this was just all rendered out and not actual gameplay. But if this is gameplay from the alpha, or from like a playable version, that would be an alpha. So I'm not going to get caught up in what they call it, but just calling something like that pre-alpha, it just kind of bugs me from somebody who works in software development. Like if you're doing this in the game and this is you walking around and controlling all this, that is alpha. That's like the whole point. So it doesn't matter. Anyways, so a couple thoughts here. And one of the things I opined about over on Blue Sky and X or Twitter, whatever it's called this week, is that I wonder if they knew that Fable was going to get pushed, and that's why they pushed Avowed into 2025. I'm not saying that Fable and Avowed are the same game, but they attract the same type of player, right? A very similar player base, and not just Xbox gamers, but like a certain type of person who likes a particular style and type of game. And so they might have thought that is one speculation. That's one of the reasons, because they did say that Avowed did not need more time, which very well could have been true. But they knew that Fable needed it, right? A little playing of the words, right? Oh, Avowed, we're pushing it here. It's not for more time. It's just to give Indiana Jones, which did very well, a breathing room. And so then they're actually in the back of their minds thinking like, look, now we can ship this game in 2025. We can punt Fable, give it more time that it properly needs to 2026, and we still look like we're in control and shipping games on a really regular cadence and blah. But I mean, you guys can go from there. The other thing, and this is pure speculation, so do not say this is any sort of matter of fact. You can't ignore what I'm about to say. Are they delaying it so they can also ship it on the PS5? Yeah, right? This is supposed to be an Xbox exclusive. That's how it was announced. That is how it's perceived to be. Xbox exclusive these days are pretty rare. Now, does it make sense to launch the Xbox and PlayStation version at the same time? This is something I've genuinely wondered about recently, is when games do go to PlayStation 5, are they going to launch at the same time as the Xbox, right? That is one lever that Microsoft can absolutely pull, and to give Xbox at least some sort of competitive advantage, right? Give it like 6 months of exclusivity, 3 months, or whatever the dates are. And then there's at least some reason to own an Xbox if you're not in Game Pass. Now, I'm not saying it's going to PlayStation 5, but like we've all been hearing everything Phil Spencer says and everything's going on. There's no red line, right? So we don't know until we know, but it makes you wonder in today's day and age. And it really just kind of dovetails right into the backside of, not Fable, but Forza Horizon, right? It's coming to PlayStation 5. I believe the full launch is April 29th, but if you buy the premium stuff, then it is on the 25th. So like you put these things like, wow, that's the wrong button there. You put these things back together, and you just wonder these days with what's going on. Anyways, this pre-alpha, if that's truly what it is, it looks great. I hope it's not pre-rendered footage. I hope this is actual in-game play stuff, because it looks wonderful. It looks fun. Of course, they're not going to come out and show off something that is not great. Now, here's the other thing. Like, if they were supposed to ship this year and they were still in the pre-alpha state, Well, that means they're like dramatically behind, right? Like if you're supposed to be shipping this year, you would have to be in what we would consider beta, which brings up another point. Like, what's the actual difference between alpha and beta? Many, many years ago, they had a much more defined meaning. Today, it's all just slopped together, and it's just a game hasn't shipped, especially with, there's a million different ways you can define alpha and beta these days, and none of them really make sense. But right, like, yeah. So anyways, they're delaying that, and that's the thing. Now, I will warn all of you that this computer might blue screen, not the one that I'm recording on, this one that I'm trying to pull up the questions on. Task Manager is like pegged at like 98%, and system interrupts is like 60% of that. And so I don't really know what is going on. I need to try to reboot this thing, but rebooting it while you're doing a podcast or trying to record a podcast is not particularly easy, because this screen behind me is powered by this laptop that you can't see, or maybe right here. And so it's not powered by the box that is recording all this. They're two different entities, but anyways, that's too much information. So let's get into the questions of the week. As I remind you, always my favorite part. Oh, before I even do that, before we even do questions, I'm contemplating building a website just for my own sake. I don't know about from scratch, but like I own the domain bdsams.com. And like I do podcasting and I do questions and all this stuff. And I don't know if there's any platforms that people, I know Ghost is out there. WordPress is the easy default. I don't think I want to do something from scratch. It's at the fringes of my capabilities, but even just like getting up like a basic, point people there for the question sort of thing. Just to kind of consolidate. Cause like we get questions all over the place, and there's value in owning your own domain at the end of the day, but I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, Codgart says, happy Pokemon Day, the 27th. He says, Brad, I know this is outside the Microsoft realm, but have you ever been into Pokemon? No, I was always more of like a Link, Zelda, that kind of, I played Magic the Gathering for a while. It's not necessarily Pokemon related, but it's sort of in that genre, if you will. But no, I never got into Pokemon, not for any particular reason, but it just kind of missed me. Like I was in the Ninja Turtles, the Contras, the Zelda, the Link, and that story and experience and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I don't know. Never got into it. And he says, another question is also not really a question, but with the Windows 10 support ending soon, I was wondering if you've ever put Linux on an old Surface device. I found a distro that optimizes Surface hardware for Ubuntu, and I was curious if you've tried it. No, what distro did you find? Obviously, it's Ubuntu. But no, I have not tried. I would actually be super curious to see. I've got some old, like the Surface Go models. That would be an interesting place to try it. So can you let me know what version and what it is? Especially if it runs on a Surface Go. Lynn Hartston says, given your comments on Copilot popping up in Office recently, have you found any uses for it or other AI services in your day-to-day life so far? So you kind of got to separate the things out a little bit, because I've definitely found uses for AI. Image generation is super fun. I use it sometimes for thumbnails and just other content ideas for various things. Language translations also very good. So I use it, not necessarily Copilot, but I use AI for that a lot. Startup, we have a product called Desktop GPT, and we explicitly built it for certain reasons. And I have a template in there for language translations, and it works really, really well for continuous prompt generation and continuous and consistent prompt generation. However, Copilot specifically, no. It's not, could I use Copilot to do language translation? Sure. But I just prefer the vanilla experience of desktop or ChatGPT, the OpenAI API. And so every time, and this goes for ChatGPT and even Claude and all this stuff, every time I ask it to, like, I give it something to say, like, write a press release or do something like work related, it always just kind of, it's like 70% of the way there, but then you end up just going back and rewriting it. One of the primary things that I use it for is actually headline generation. So it's really good if you type like a headline you think you're going to do, you want, or something like that, and say, give me 10 examples. It's typically okay with that, but like to write a long paragraph or paragraphs, it always just gets close and not great. So, candidly, no. I would actually be curious if you have. I mean, there's various things that it is good for, just like quick dipping in and out sometimes. I'm really waiting for Search GPT become more pervasive and available. And so I'd like to actually write my own tool for Search GPT so I can get results in the way that makes sense for me rather than the way it perceives most people want results. So they haven't opened up that API, at least not on the tiers that I'm privy to at this point. But I would have to imagine that is coming at some point. Mr. PKI, who has been on an absence of questions, is making up for himself today with a triple dose of questions. You said you asked for a triple header on your I don't have a secret social media account, so here it goes. This is more a personal one. Does all your show revenue come from YouTube watchers and subscribers, or do you get any support from iTunes listeners? No, all revenue comes from YouTube side. I could maybe try to use one of the services that injects ads into the audio feed, but it's pennies and it's just not worth the effort. And YouTube, the brilliance of YouTube is that they've just made it easy. Now, you can turn monetization off, and I obviously leave it on. However, ads still show up on your video. And so almost all the dollars earned from this channel actually just go right back into it, buying various things, paying for software, paying for subscriptions that make this show possible, right? Even the RSS feed that I use cost me almost $200 a year for that service. And so, yeah, there's other tools out there, but it works. It gets the job done. And I don't feel like changing it. So a lot of it just gets reinvested here. It doesn't make a ton of money. It makes enough that I leave it on. But again, if YouTube said, nope, we're demonetizing your entire channel, there'd still be a video next week. It's that kind of thing. So anyways, here's the other thing too. So YouTube keeps pressuring. They're like, turn on what do they call it? Subscribers, not subscribers. The monetization thing within YouTube where people can join your community. I can't even think. Subscriptions, I guess maybe that's what it is. I don't know. YouTube, every week is you should turn this on. You've got a large enough channel to support this. You would make more money. I don't know what the hell I would do. The only thing I could put in there would be show notes and who's I just like you guys listening and hanging out. The money is great, but it's whatever. I appreciate the community more than anything else. And so I don't know. Here's the reason why I would turn it on. More than anything else, it's to get better input into the YouTube algorithm. So if people who really pay attention know that I've been doing more shorts recently, not because I love the shorts format, but because Google then blesses you with the magic glitter that actually has been elevating the number of people listening to this. This podcast, possibly on YouTube, might get more views than a typical podcast before I was doing shorts. So the question becomes, if I turn on that community subscription feature, is Google going to be here's more magic glitter because now we can make more money from you. We're going to actually promote your stuff more often, is the reason why to turn it on. And so I don't know. Maybe I could do that, and then Mr. PKI could become my benefactor and make up for all his Zune revenue that he's taken from by not listening. I'm just kidding. But seriously, I'd like a Porsche. The 911. I'm not even mean. A 911 Carrera T. Now we're so far off the beaten path. It doesn't matter. The 911 Carrera T comes in a manual, and I take the manual over. Don't get me wrong, I'd love a turbo or even a GTS, but a proper row your own boat, 3-pedal Porsche is what I want. That's, anyways. Anyways, how'd we end up here? Mr. PKI with the second question. Are we going to now see ad-supported Office on most PCs as the default unless you buy a home license? How is this new ad-based option going to work? Will it be like Hulu, where you need to watch an ad before you can save a doc? Here's one thing that's tangential to this. I got rid of the image. So I was traveling this week. When I got back to my PC, I turned it on and logged into Teams for work, and there was an ad that popped up. I tweeted it out, and it's on Blue Sky and Twitter, so you can go find it if you're really interested. So it was a pop-up for Microsoft 365 community conferences in Las Vegas. Now, you might be like, but Brad, that's a thing or whatever. Well, first off, it's a pop-up, and it was in the chats. So I was one-on-one chat with somebody, and it was in there. So it's not like it's somewhere non-obvious. It was right there. Here's the thing. That's a third-party conference. Microsoft just sends some speakers to it, but they don't own the conference. So these are third-party promotional ads inside of Teams. Holy yikes. And so I don't know exactly how this Office stuff is going to work. I've read a little bit about it, but I haven't actually seen it in action. And so Microsoft has found ways to monetize things. They probably realize that enough people use those web versions of Office that were previously free. And they're like, look, we can start shoving ads in there and become that advertising company and annoy people and get them to pay for money. Mr. PKI's third question. He says, okay, now that we're hearing that Fable is delayed until 2026, is this because they want to launch it with a new upcoming rumored console, or is it because it's running into the Halo Infinite problem? I did not put together the pieces that we've heard rumors that there's the Xbox potentially launching in 2026. However, here's the counter to that potential argument is more than almost certainly this is going to be a cross-gen title, right? Like cross-gen, like meaning it'll Xbox Series X, like that's what we think it would be. I will tell you what, it would take some serious coconuts and kahunas from Phil Spencer to launch a new Fable title that is exclusively locked to Xbox and exclusively locked to a next-gen console. Now, I'm not saying that won't help them sell more consoles. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I mean, it's a bad thing if you're maybe trying to make more money, but that's an interesting scenario. We did not consider that why it might be delayed. I don't know if that's true or not, but it is an interesting little question there. My gut says no, that they're not doing that because it flies in the face of all the exclusivity stuff that we have seen. And for them to come out and say, no, it's only going to be on this console, that's the only thing it's going to do, that would set a pretty a pretty interesting precedent about how the Microsoft is thinking about this stuff. Because clearly they're not going to do that with something like Call of Duty. That's way too big. They're not going to do that with something potentially like another Halo title, even though Halo is Xbox sort of thing. So maybe it's not a bad thought. It is not a bad thought, Mr. PKI. So anyways, that wraps it up for this week. Like I said, a little condensed week, not a ton going on, but it is also like the end of February. I expect as we get closer to Microsoft's Build conference here coming up that things might, well, typically like 2 weeks before Build, there's a lot of stuff. And then like the week before Build, there's nothing. And then the week of Build is like, bam. Then there's a ton of stuff going on. So anyways, my friends, as always, make sure to keep it subscribed here because the only BS on this podcast is me.